104.5 The Team, your home for New York Jets football, and it's a crazy time for Jets fans everywhere as reports of meetings being missed, birthday parties that happen to be meetings being missed. So we're going to go to the guy who broke the story, Connor Hughes of NJ.com. What exactly is going on with Muhammad Wilkerson and the New York Jets?
Well, I think the simplest thing you could say is that they're not exactly leading by example. I mean, these are two guys, when you talk about Sheldon and you talk about Muhammad Wilkerson, that are two of the 3 or 4 best defensive players on this team, probably 2 of the top 5 players on this team, guys that younger guys look up to and guys that younger guys look to lead by example. And they are habitually, routinely late and or miss meetings completely from what I've been told. And again, I mean, it's not a good look. It's in fact, it's kind of a pathetic and a bad look that the two guys that, you know, one that just got an $86 million contract and another one who's probably going to be in store after next season to get something similar are doing this, you know, and you know, it wasn't long ago that Mo was sitting there complaining about not being paid and not being respected, and Sheldon kind of starting to say the same things. And now these are two guys that just, you know, for whatever reason have decided they can show up when they want to meetings or just not show up at all. So it's an issue. It's something that doesn't look good. And now that this news is out there, it's going to be interesting to see how if Todd Bowles changes his approach to discipline.
Yeah, the news that broke yesterday involved missing a meeting in Week 7 and also that birthday party cake celebration that he wasn't a part of. How did that become a story 2 weeks later?
What ended up happening was I was actually told the information that he was habitually late to meetings or just missed meetings altogether when talking about Sheldon and Mo from a couple people that I'm close with, that I've close working relationships with that gave me the information. I dug up a little bit to try to get some more information on it, and I found out what I did and I reported, and then I think it was NFL Network started digging a little bit more, and they found out the additional details in terms of what meetings it was, and then the little tidbit on the birthday celebration. But, you know, it was something where, as this is the case, anytime something controversial happens, you get the initial report and you get the initial information, and then there's always more to be uncovered. And, you know, it's kind of more about, now that the blanket was lifted off, it's about everybody going in there and searching to see what they can find underneath the bed.
Now, I was just checking your Twitter, Connor, and there's reports they were even trying to get rid of Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's been – it's known that they were shopping him very much so. In fact, a source confirmed to us I mean NJ Advanced Media, that was in fact happening, that they were shopping him and taking phone calls at the trade deadline. The new information that came out was that previously it was just thought that they were exclusively talking to him with the Dallas Cowboys and trying to ship him to the Dallas Cowboys. What we found out now, though, is that it's not just, and I believe this was ESPN that first reported it, that they were not only just shipping him to the Dallas Cowboys, but they were also trying to get a deal done with the Denver Broncos and ship him out there. Now, obviously, Sheldon Richardson is a tremendous football player. He has the potential to be one of the, if not, he's probably already one of the best 34 defensive linemen in the NFL. The issue is that the Jets have 34 defensive ends. They can't play all of them at the same time. They've failed miserably trying to figure out a way to do that the last 1+ years. And now they're in a situation where they're saying, all right, who's expendable? And it's not Wilkerson, who just signed a 5-year contract extension. It's not Leonard Williams, who's probably the best of the 3. So that's Sheldon, who's going to be a free agent next year. So they were shopping him, trying to get him off their hands, trying to get some kind of draft pick compensation in return. From what I understand, the draft pick compensation that they were looking for was not something that teams were willing to part with, be it that, you know, Sheldon's $8 million hit next year, or the fact that, you know, he's got some off-field issues, and a lot of people view him as a 2-strike player because he's been suspended twice. So, you know, they weren't able to get it, so they kept him. They're going to play with him now for the rest of the season. And what happens in the offseason is a whole other case. You know, if gun to my head, I'd probably have to say that odds are Sheldon's going to be moved, because it just, I mean, you couple the fact that the Jets obviously don't have a place really to play him. They're not going to pay him, and they're going to need to start looking at a rebuild for this team. A draft pick is much more valuable than having number 91 on the roster.
Connor Hughes from NJ Advanced Media. You can follow him on Twitter at Connor_J_Hughes right here on 104.5 The Team.
Connor, the thing I'm struggling with is just the simple question of why. Why was this allowed to happen? Was it going on last season with Todd Bowles? Was the winning kind of overshadowing this? Is it a money situation? Why were Richardson and Wilkerson even allowed to do this if they were at all?
It's not crazy uncommon to have players show up late to meetings. Normally what coaches do is it just doesn't escalate to a suspension. I mean, even if you go back to the most common, just because I remember reading the article a few years ago, I know it happens all the time, but Plaxico Burress was fined like over 100 times by the Giants during his time there for being late to meetings. It just never escalates. You show up late, you don't show up on time, you get a $1,000 fine. You get a $500 fine for being late. For us, that's like, oh wow, $1,000. That's kind of a steep thing if you're doing it every week. But for these guys making $10-15 million a year, it's not really that big of a deal. So it's not that the Jets weren't punishing these guys. It's not that the Jets weren't handing out fines, which Todd Bowles won't say he was. He's not going to. On his press conference yesterday, he made it very abundantly clear that he's not going to talk about this situation. He's not going to go into detail about this. However, I would be shocked if he was not, if these guys were not fined. And it was an issue that was happening last year because Muhammad Wilkerson missed time. He was benched for the first quarter against the Giants last year for the same thing, for missing team meetings, or for being late to team meetings. Now it's happening again. You hit the nail on the head a little bit where the winning kind of hit it. Where Mo's got 12 sacks, he's dominating. Okay, so he was a little late to meetings. He was benched for a quarter. That's fine. The Jets won anyway. Now that this team is 3-6, the defense can't do anything right, and Mo has been invisible for the majority of these games that the Jets have played. You're now in a situation where, okay, well, you just got paid, you got your $86 million, you're not performing on the field. What gives you the right to show up late? And I know the NFL Network report gave a little more detail that one of the reasons why this now turned from just being fined routinely to being docked some playing time is because other players in that locker room were kind of sitting there saying, okay, what is going to get one of these guys off the field? Are they just allowed to do whatever the heck they want? And as a player's coach, Todd Bowles sometimes lets him get away with a little bit more because he was a former player. He understands how things work. But it's clear that this is an issue, and it's clear that this has escalated to the point where others in the locker room are starting to question what the heck is going on. And that's something I was told as well. And it seems like it's finally reached the tipping point of, okay, now we're going to need to start taking them off the field.
It's ironic you bring up Plaxico. I did an event with him last month. He showed up an hour late. So even getting fined 100 times, some things haven't changed with Plaxico.
Connor, is this a situation where Todd Bowles is losing his team?
I didn't mean to sound like Darrelle Revis there, but yeah, I think you're reaching that point, and this is look, man. I'll be here. After every single one of these Jets losses this year, going into the locker room right after the loss, talking to these guys right after the game, yes, none of them were happy that they lost, but there was always this noticeable feeling that they could turn it around, that they could, yes, okay, fine, we lost 2 games in a row, we lost 3 games in a row, but you know what? There's still a ton of time left. We can get at this and turn around and we can win. After this loss to the Dolphins was the first time that I truly got a sense in the field that this team just was emotionally beat. I mean, Brandon Marshall took the postgame, stood on the first postgame press conference. I thought I was going to start crying. I mean, that's how emotionally distraught he was. Darrelle Revis is in the locker room throwing, insults at Jarvis Landry, and then Marshall's doing the same thing at Byron Maxwell, and then Muhammad Wilkerson and Leonard Williams, after they're benched for the first quarter, leave the locker room without talking to the media and explaining themselves, showing absolutely no accountability. Now you're starting to see those little clusters of this is turning for the bad, and against a good team next week in the LA Rams, against a very good team after the bye in the New England Patriots, there's a very real chance the Jets are going to drop these next 2 games. And if it's already a volatile and ugly situation now, if this is already a volatile and an ugly situation now, what could this potentially turn to in 2 weeks when the Jets are not 3-6, but they're 3-8? Or what if they lose the game after that to the Colts, who obviously, they're not a very good team this year, but they certainly look better than the Jets. Suddenly you're now 3-9. I mean, this Jets season is not getting ugly with 2 games left to play or a game left to play or heading to the offseason where everybody gets a break. This is a team that is turning ugly, and this is all getting ugly, and we still have 8 games left to play. I mean, there are 8 weeks left in this season. Or 8 weeks, 7 games left in this season. This is far from being over. And if the Jets don't start winning now, Todd Bowles can absolutely lose this locker room. Todd Bowles can absolutely lose this team because, the guys that you say who are going to keep everything together, where are they? I mean, Sheldon Richardson, Leonard Williams, where are they? I mean, they're missing team meetings, so they're already kind of not really in that leadership quality. Darrelle Revis, you saw against the Cleveland Browns completely give up on a couple plays. He's not really a guy you're going to turn to as a leader. Ryan Fitzpatrick's on the verge of getting benched, and Brandon Marshall was seen on the sidelines screaming and yelling at Fitzpatrick. So this whole issue right now with the Jets has turned into, it's already ugly, but it's hard to see it actually getting better these next 7-8 weeks, because it doesn't get easier at least these next two games. The Rams aren't a good team, but they look better than the Jets. The Patriots are way better than the Jets. Like I said, the Colts look like a team that right now are better than the Jets. So it's ugly, and it's probably only going to get uglier. And I don't think Todd has lost the team yet, but it would not be surprised me if you asked me this question 3 weeks later, and it's the inmates running the asylum.
Touched on Ryan Fitzpatrick possibly getting benched. What is the breaking point? What finally puts Bryce Petty into the game?
Just time. It's going to happen, man. I mean, there's only a matter of time before he takes over. In my opinion, what the Jets are probably going to want, and this is just my opinion, Todd Bowles will speak tomorrow. There's a chance, obviously, there's a chance Ryan Fitzpatrick's injury does not let him play this week. I mean, Todd was pretty straightforward on his conference call yesterday in saying that if Fitzpatrick doesn't practice at least Friday, they're going to start Bryce Petty. They're not going to let Fitzpatrick go out there with no practice reps or no practice time. So there's a chance Bryce starts this week. Now, assuming everybody is healthy, meaning Bryce is healthy, Ryan's healthy, Christian Hackenberg's healthy, I think what the Jets are going to do is they're going to give Ryan this week, because Todd said he's going to give Ryan this week against the Rams. I personally believe that they will split starter reps during the bye week and the week after the bye, but they will start Ryan Fitzpatrick on a very short leash against the Patriots, and then they will hand the offense over to Bryce Petty going into that Indianapolis Colts game. And the only reason that I say that is because if the Jets were playing anybody else out of that bye, I would say they hand the offense over to Bryce Petty. However, because Bryce Petty's never started a game, you don't want to throw him to the wolves in Belichick and that Patriots defense. You're just not going to want to do it. It's going to be it would be a bloodbath. So I think they'll probably give Ryan that game against the Patriots just because it's the Patriots, and then they'll hand the keys to the offense over to Bryce the rest of the way.
Connor Hughes is money. He works for NJAdvance.com, follows the Jets around and makes sure we know what's going on. Thank you for your time, man. We appreciate you. Good stuff.
No problem, man. I appreciate you guys having me.